right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world as you're listening to this broadcast. My name's Dave Cohen. I'm a director here at Level Up Consulting Partners. I'd like to welcome you all to a new series we've created that we're calling Meet the Directors. Here at Level Up, we pride ourselves on creating customized, personalized project teams. So we thought it would be a good idea to provide you with the opportunity to get to know our leadership team. So with that, for our first edition today, I'd like to welcome Donel Martinez. Donel, welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Dave, for having me.
Donel is our newest member of the leadership team, having joined us just this spring. That said, he has a long history of working with our senior team, and we'll probably get around to that history in our chat. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And Donel, again, welcome. And can you tell us a little bit about your professional background?
Thanks, Dave. So I'll go a little bit back and spend the first half of my career in software development and IT and project management roles. As a matter of fact, this is true story. We we actually in the early 2000s, I was actually involved in building up the cookie environment. So everything that we all know and we actually get involved with. Obviously, cookies were designed for something differently originally, so we were actually using them for that purpose. And one of our team members, our expert on cookies, his name is Oscar. His nickname actually was Cookie, so we'll hear him saying it at least 50 times a day.
Oh, that's great. That's fun to hear a little bit of history about cookies, which of course are still a very big issue for us in the data privacy world today. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then from there, I got introduced to the world of risk and controls through anti-money laundering compliance. It was interesting because the U.S. Patriot Act, obviously after the terrible things that happened in 2001, it drastically changed compliance. And what was interesting about this act is that because of the lack of understanding and because of the concerns of what was happening, it was very methodical, very tactical approach to compliance. So it was extremely repetitive, checklist based, documentation based, and because of that, banks were struggling because the rules were enforced and they were afraid of fines, which were happening every time, plus the reputational damage along with it.
And this is because an event like that, the Patriot Act and the immediate concern, everybody rushes to try to create solutions. It's kind of a typical cycle that we see again and again. Regulators, in an effort to protect consumers, come in and, compliance requirements are drafted. They're rolled out into business. And it sounds like what you saw were some of the early days of what those compliance obligations look like to companies and how they struggle with to be in compliance with the law at the same time while trying to do business and keep the lights on and generate revenue and do all the things that businesses are created to do. And that dual challenge can be a real lift sometimes. So you saw that sounds like from the inside, from the IT tech world early on.
That's right. And then not jumping into it, actually a bit after Patriot Act came the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which also was heavily focused on compliance, right? And validated the audit framework and compliance across the world. And I got the opportunity to start working on it via consulting services, where I met some of the team members that we have today. So I was lucky enough to join them in the team. And in there, I had the opportunity to start assisting in very different ways. I was able to use my technical knowledge and my expertise that I accumulated by finding creative ways to solve problems. One that I always like to talk about, back in those times, because this is pre OneTrust, right? And pre everything else that we know today. We were actually using Excel macros in a very creative way to collect information that will be helpful to establish even some of the early GDPR requirements and anything that related to cookie consent and privacy.
Yeah. For those that are newer to the field of data security and privacy, it may seem like privacy management platforms like OneTrust and others that are out in the field and out available in the market today are just were always how we did things. But it's a good reminder, Donel, that at the time the obligations and the requirements came out, and companies just had to figure out how to manage these obligations with the tools at hand, the tools that were already in the shop, as it were. And so, of course, Excel, and still a lot of work being done still in Excel sheets. And we help clients transfer over from Excel sheets onto platforms still, and a lot of legacy systems. And for some small shops, it's actually still not a bad way to go, even. Yeah, it's interesting that you got to see those early days of compliance. So, and then beyond, so that's really interesting, Donel, to hear that you came in from the IT security and the computer science background, so you have that technical knowledge, and you kind of added that compliance layer to it, and the auditing layer. Where did you go from there? And also, I'm a little bit curious, like what got you into that in the first place? Like, how did you decide to enter the field and kind of pursue this as a career path?
So, because when I was in IT, as you mentioned earlier, I experienced firsthand these frustrations and the just the ability to keep with compliance along with having to keep the lights on, right? So,
Yeah.
the struggle from an IT perspective it's a sometimes is not a rewarded role, in the sense that they're there, because if I'm out, that's when you'll know the needs of IT, right? So obviously, then different organizations, you have the pieces of expectation of continue growing. Now with technology, a lot of it is technology centric, but if you go back to bare bones and basics, the objective of the IT organization is to support the business and to make
Right.
sure it continues operating. So if you think from that angle, for all of these folks trying to keep up with continue increasing compliance and regulatory requirements was a struggle, because that was on top of whatever else they're already doing to support the business. So that's what I had the opportunity to experience.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea to know, that the idea that really the IT department within any organization, really, as you mentioned, of course, works as a support organization. It's almost like, sure, it exists within the organization, but if you just, it's almost the same thing as a lot of the work that we do. We're an external organization supporting our clients. But we're there to support the many needs across departmental functions, just like an IT support system is. So really, the transition for you from being inside a company working in IT support to being an external consultant supporting companies wasn't a huge shift in structure in terms of the way you operate, right?
Definitely. And it was interesting to see happening, and this was across all of the different supporting infrastructures, right? So obviously I single out IT because that's the opportunity where I had it, but every other area that supports the business had to deal with exactly the same situation. And what I
Right.
think at level up, that the opportunity that we have, and this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I've tried to do in the past few years, is when I say try to establish creative ways to solve these problems, I've been lucky enough to really use creative in that. And I think that based on my time at Level Up, I clearly, that's why I was excited to join Level Up, because this word is very important. Because at the end of the day, especially now as things are happening, there is no specific way to establish a lot of the compliance requirements, right? So those times where all I need to do is produce paperwork just for the sake of being protected no longer are here. And that gives a strong opportunity for everyone out there to say, okay, let me find the best way to accomplish the requirement or demonstrate that I have what I need without the burden of creating unnecessary processes or unnecessary paperwork for that effort.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And, you bring up a good point. It's sometimes sometimes it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that there is a way to do things and this is the way to do things. Or I've even, the term best practices. It's always kind of irked me a little bit because it's every situation is different. And that's kind of a lot of what I think we do and a lot of what folks in privacy teams do inside their organizations is they're problem solvers, right? They have to figure out how to accomplish this data security or privacy obligation or requirement, but it's oftentimes a unique solution. And one of the things I really enjoy about working here is when we come in and we help privacy teams get their work done, we get to meet the folks in all the organizations that are collecting and processing a lot of personal information, the marketing teams, the HR teams, and help. It's a lot of internal education as well, just about what these requirements are and getting people on board with getting up to compliance speed and such. So that whole problem solving aspect of it is great. And, that kind of leads to the next thing I want to talk a little bit about, Donel, which is that those types of folks that, like to be creative, like to problem solve, like to kind of think on their feet, it attracts an interesting group of people. We have here in the team at Level Up. Of course, we're a virtual company, but with some really interesting interests. And I'm curious to hear a little bit about, obviously we all work hard and we work a lot, but outside of work, what are some things that you enjoy doing just to kind of relax and get away from the screens when you do that?
Yeah, sure. And a little bit of a personal background as well. I'm originally from Guatemala. I moved here by myself. All my family is still in Guatemala. And I've been here for a few years. And I also have a 10-year-old. Well, about 5 days to become 10-year-old, which what makes it exciting to me is that I'm very passionate about scuba diving, and 10 years is the minimum age to become certified. So I'm already planning what we're going to do together.
That's so exciting, Donel. And happy birthday in advance to your daughter. That sounds like it's going to be 10 is always a fun one. Double digits coming up. That's awesome. So terrific. Well, we're going to be wrapping up in just a few minutes. I think one thing that might be illustrative for the folks listening in here is to hear a little bit about the day-to-day work that we do. So can you tell us a little bit about some of your current projects, to know, like, what are you working on now, and just kind of in general, what's on your desk at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm assisting a couple of Fortune 500 clients in the hospitality business into going back to, we're talking about executing these strategies to meet compliance expectations. And we're focusing on areas around privacy and encryption and asset management. So going back to what I was saying, asset management is an interesting one because it's always a struggle. I have not seen an organization telling me they have perfect asset management strategies, and, which is incredible in the sense of more personal aware of everyone out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
To meet those
Yeah.
requirements.
Shadow IT. I've always got a chuckle out of that term.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then
So
and another guy in entertainment industry reviewing, creating a baseline level of security around their program of how it meets the expectations.
That's fantastic. It sounds like some good challenging work, and similar to a lot of the work a lot of the teams are doing over here at Level Up. So, well, Donel, really appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of what I know is a busy day with all of your project delivery and implementation work. So we appreciate you taking a little time, and thanks for sharing with us about your background. And it's great to have you on the team. So really appreciate you helping us out with this inaugural edition of our Meet the Director series.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
And everybody have a great rest of the day. Thanks for joining us today. And if, by the way,